Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 44th Annual Atlanta Film Festival and 10th anniversary of the Creative Conference. This panel is about auditioning, about casting, and really talking about what are the protocols, when should you be concerned on set, what do you do if you're concerned on set, and really talking about what actors are saying behind the scenes and the questions they may be asking, their fears, as well as some of the things we hear from producers trying to kind of push those boundaries. We're not talking about any show specifics. We won't be naming any shows. This isn't about outing people in their bad behavior. This is sharing information that is super important to get out to people as we start getting back to work. I've made all the COVID panels free this year because I think public health shouldn't be kept behind a paywall. So and also keep in mind that protocols change, things happen quickly. Everything is a moving target. So by the time this airs in a week or two, something may have changed. So we're gonna do the best we can with everything that we've got so far and all the knowledge. And we hope that this helps you as you start to get back to work. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm very happy to have Susan, Mike, and Jessica with us today. Why don't I start with Susan, since you're in my top left corner. You may be somewhere else for someone else, but tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, Linda, thanks. Thanks for having this panel and helping to spread the information about how to get back to work, right? So I'm Susan Moss. I'm the Regional Set Relations Representative for SAG-AFTRA, one of two who works out of Atlanta. My job is basically to go to set and make sure that actors are protected, that they're paid, they're fed, they're rested, all the things that are called for in our contract. And lately it's been to help productions work to get back to work safely, discuss their protocols and pre-production meetings, go to set, and have a conversation. Hey, how's this working? How's that working? You could do a little better here. I mean, we are so anxious to get our performers back to work, but it needs to be safe. And I find that productions are trying to do the exact same thing. So it's been a lot of great conversations.
Yeah, and Susan is also an actor, so it's not like she doesn't know her way around set. She's not just some suit sitting in the office visiting things. She has firsthand experience here. And I would also like to thank Susan and Mike for SAG-AFTRA and what you guys have been doing, because really so far in this mess, although some might disagree with me, I think you are the only union and or guild who is really on the front line of making sure things are in place, because as we work through all these other protocols with studios, production companies, producers, unions, guilds, SAG was the first kind of line of defense where they drew a line in the sand and said, look, we got to make sure we get this right. So I want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I can't imagine how hard that job must be for Melissa and everyone in the office, but thank you for everything you guys have been doing. It's super important, and you may not hear thank you enough, but there's plenty of us in the community talking about how grateful we are for what you guys are doing. And that includes you too, Mike, because you're involved in all that. Talk to me about who you are and what you do.
Thanks. I'm Mike Pniewski. I've been an actor in film and television for 30 plus years. I also serve the union. I'm a member of the local SAG-AFTRA board. Have held many positions in the union, but on a lot of committees. I also am a trustee on the pension and health plans, and I have been a part of Gabrielle Carteris, our president's task force on safety and putting together the Safe Way Forward. But I do have to give a shout out to the DGA, the WGA, and IA, and the Teamsters, who have all worked together on that document. And what we found is a real extraordinary time of inter-union cooperation, where we're all really on the same page trying to help people get back to work safely. And I think the Safe Way Forward has been a terrific document. And there's been a lot of work on from all of those unions and their staffs and their experts in coming up with the protocols, which we hope will become the baseline for the industry, so that then more and more sets can get back to work. Because I think once we have that foundational thing out there that everybody's agreed on, I think you're going to see more and more shows go back to work. And what I'm also hopeful for is and maybe I'm a little ambitious, but I think that we can really be a model for a lot of other industries on how to go back to work safely, and do it in a way that enables your people to be productive, as well as keep people from getting sick. So thanks for having me. This should be a cool discussion.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive when you look at how most negotiations go between unions and guilds, especially, you know, around contracts and things. And it has been pretty impressive to see everybody come together, and it really speaks for the creative passion and love everyone has for this industry, how hard we're working. It's not about the money. I mean, it is. There's a lot of money at stake here. We're a huge industry and people don't realize that. But it's just fascinating to see everybody working together this hard to make it happen. And I look forward to seeing how this works. There's a lot of canaries in the coal mine out there right now, and with winter coming, and, you know, weather changes, it makes me real nervous. And I love all of my friends and want to, you know, we all want to keep each other safe, and it's nice to see everybody come together. Jessica, as a casting director, you know, you've got unique insight as well, talking to both the producers, the directors, and also the cast. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I am a casting director in Atlanta, and I do film, television, union and non-union, and now also scripted podcasts, which is super exciting. I didn't know how much fun it would really be, but that's been great. It reminds me of the old time radio shows. So that's a union show.
Yeah, we just did a podcast with iHeartRadio, with the president, Connell Byrne, and some friends that are working on that. So yeah, I mean, that's, you know, for actors listening, like, podcasts right now are kind of the thing to do, because it's easy to do them socially distant and safe. So there are people out there making podcasts, scripted podcasts, and being able to have access to actors they may never have had before. So it's really an exciting time in that realm. So I want to start with, you know, what are some of the actor concerns that you're hearing? And I really want all of you guys to talk about it, because you all, you know, I mean, there's some actors, I'm not going back to work, I don't feel comfortable, I'm not safe. And there's others, hey, get me to work. Like, I need to feed my family, I can't stay unemployed. So there's a lot of different sentiments out there. But Susan, I'd like to talk to you first, because you're really kind of on the front lines on set with people who are working. What are some of the actor related concerns you're hearing, and how are they doing?
Well, it's like you said, Linda, it's a whole range of things. There are some people who, I'll do any test, I'll go wherever, just get me back to work. And there are others who are like, I'm really afraid of the nasal swab test, and I've got, sinus issues and things like that. So it's just kind of reassuring people that the things that we are asking them to do are pretty non-invasive, momentary discomfort, the challenge of wearing a mask all the time, some people have problems with that, but kind of once you get into it and realize that that is actually the thing that lets you get back to work, then that's helpful. People want to know, there's a lot of sort of medical knowledge we're all learning. How long do test results last? How quickly, once you get it, how long does it take before you can actually start shedding active virus? What's the difference between antibodies, antigens, an active virus? Why do I need to wear a mask and a shield? We had, a lot of protocols are really specific, and I don't really feel like people are that worried about it. I think they're worried about what they don't know, like what they're learning out of context is more of a concern than what's actually going on. So I can't think of any instance where somebody's brought us a specific concern that we, didn't talk them through it and, just kind of put their mind at ease, which is, part of the process.
Yeah, and we've got another panel later on coming up on testing as well. So, with some people who just came off some shoots talking about, and that stuff changes like that. Right. But we'll be talking about that later on as well. Mike, what are you hearing from actors, on the SAG side locally? And, you work all over the country. So, what are you hearing, actor concerns?
I think, for the most part, actors want to know prior to accepting a job if they feel like the production is set up to follow all the proper protocols. especially if it's maybe a smaller production or a lesser known company that maybe people aren't familiar with. I think people are concerned about major network projects or major studio projects because more than likely they're going to be following the proper protocols. But I think when you get into some of the independent productions, actors just want to be reassured that it's safe. I think so far, what I'm hearing and seeing is that everything's going along pretty well. There's only been a couple of exceptions, and even in those cases, things were able to be fixed. And no, there's not been any major outbreak as a result of any production work. And I think that's a big priority for our industry, that we don't want to be the cause of a big outbreak. And so I think it's in everybody's interest to do the right thing and keep everybody safe, whether it's the actor or the crew or the producers or anybody. Because again, because of the nature of the virus, if somebody gets sick and they're around everybody, it doesn't really matter who you are. You're putting everybody in jeopardy and potentially financially causing a shutdown of the operation for who knows how long. So so far, I think the actors just want to be reassured everybody's following protocols. I haven't heard of any bad actor behavior at this point, because I think everybody gets it for the most part. And I think that what's out there really takes into account the process as well as the need to be safe. So everybody still has a chance to be creative and do their work while they're still maintaining the proper protocols. So I think all in all, it's been pretty positive. But again, I think Susan makes a great point. The big issue now is just the unknown. And until people get more familiar with it, there's just going to be a lot of that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple important things you said in there. And one of them, I know 479 sent out a notice to all their members like, hey, think about what you do on the weekends. It's not just about when you're on set, you know, because if you're the guy who gets a bunch of people sick and a show shuts down because we have an outbreak, shows around the country are shutting. You know, it's not just one pork plant, it's all the pork plants, you know? Mm-hmm. So that, you know, I mean, you are really taking the entire industry into, you know, into the mix if you're not safe on this one show, if you do something stupid in your off time. And the other thing is, you know, the independents, the non-unions. And I know there are some that have been incredibly safe, but what I am telling my PA Academy kids, as, you know, all these independent and low budget and no budget shows come up, if they are not SAG or non-union, especially if they're not SAG-AFTRA, that should tell you something. I just this morning woke up to an email from a producer at a major commercial production company telling me they have a big show coming to town and it's non-union, and am I available? I am not available because of the creative conference, but that was a red flag. I didn't even tell him. Normally I would say, I'm not available. Here's some people you can call. But when you're doing a national, potentially branded large budget commercial and you're non-union, that means that's that flag to me. That's like, okay, well then who's keeping you in check? There is no accountability there. And that makes me very nervous. Jessica, talk a little bit. I know you're doing union and non-union stuff. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about what you're hearing from actors as they are auditioning for roles. How has that been going?
It's actually been going really well. I've done probably a dozen projects since June. And it's a very small percentage of actors that, union and non, that have declined due to COVID concerns. I'd say it's probably 90% don't decline. And the concerns are really just the unknown and asking a lot of questions. One of my biggest clients, the head of that company started a task force starting back in February. He had a lot of awareness of this sort of thing. He used to work for a national humanitarian organization and was embedded with the WHO and the CDC during their pandemic response conferences years ago. So when that happened, he knew what was coming, even before the shutdown, before the schools closed. So he started a task force with epidemiologists and other medical experts to create a COVID protocol, which was 32 pages. And that is their baseline for all of their productions, most of which are non-union, except most of them are IA. So there are other unions involved. And the other thing that they do to help alleviate any cast concerns is they hold a town hall meeting before each production. Well, first of all the actors have to sign the protocol that they've read and acknowledged, and that they agree to follow those steps. That's for cast, crew, and production staff, contract and full-time. And then after they've read that, they have the town hall where this is an opportunity for them to speak and ask any question they want, have any concerns. And at that point, they tell them, if you're not comfortable at all at this point, you know, within the next couple of days, please let us know so we have time to replace. And we've had one person do that, and that was because their wife was about to have a baby and they were concerned. And that's been it. Long-winded, sorry.
Oh, no, this is, that's fine. So I'm gonna kind of shift to sort of the changing landscape and what this means for some actors. And I'll start with Mike, because you work out of town a lot. You know, you work on big shows in New York and LA that requires travel. You know, I don't know if your shows are coming back in production, but my first thought when I asked you to be here was, I wonder if that is going to change the opportunities Mike gets. Are they still, are people who are, you know, on shows that shoot in New York and LA that don't live in New York and LA, are they going to be written out of shows because of the travel and the quarantine time and the expense for all that? And are you suddenly going to become the guy who works on all the big budget stuff here? You know, how are you navigating those thoughts? Have you had those thoughts? You know,
sure. I've had a ton of those thoughts, because there's a lot of changes that I've been told about, mainly that since I mostly work in television, what I'm hearing is that each episode is going to have much fewer guest cast, fewer guest stars, day players, weekly players. In fact, what I've also heard is that some shows are just going to expand their number of series regulars as opposed to having more guests come in. Because when you're a regular, then they can put you in a bubble, literally or figuratively, however they want to do their operation, so they can keep everybody safe. And I get it. So far, you know, the show I worked on last year, Hightown, just announced last week they're moving to Wilmington. And so they are setting up production in Wilmington. I don't know my schedule yet. I know my agents have been talking to them about me. I'm supposed to talk to them about that today. It doesn't look like I'm going to lose out on that. There have been a couple of shows in New York that I've recurred on over the years. I don't know about them going back into production. I haven't heard yet. I think everything's coming out kind of slowly, as I suspected it would, to see how it goes, and then whatever productions haven't opened up can learn from what other people have already done. And so it's going to happen a little bit at a time, and it's slowly accelerating. I mean, in the last week or two, my auditions have picked up. Things are slowly starting to get back to work. Once we finally get the final draft of the Safe Way Forward approved by the AMPTP, I think that's going to open up another wave of work. But I think in the casting world, as much as I hate to say it, I think there's going to be less opportunity. They're just going to write fewer roles. I know there's going to be less background opportunity. They've already said it publicly, because it's just a matter of keeping people safe. And so, and honestly, us older guys and gals, I haven't heard this specifically. I've heard rumblings of the fact that, you know, we're in the riskier category. So does that mean potentially that there'll be fewer roles in the higher age ranges because they're higher risk? I haven't seen that materialize. I've heard just sort of rumbling discussions about it, because of course you can't necessarily speak that, because then you have discrimination issues. But that's a possibility as well. I think we all just kind of have to see how it plays out, be flexible, be adaptable. And, you know, I would expect at least through this season, through 2021, It's going to be a whole new normal. And then maybe after that, it might look a little more familiar, but then again, you never know.
You know,
Yeah,
you bring up a good point with the ageism, and sorry, I'll jump back to you in a second. The other thing I was thinking about are, you know, all the minority shows, you know, BET shows, all those shows that come here that have an African-American cast or a Latino cast. They are also in that group. And,
They
you
are high
know,
risk,
does
yep.
this, yeah, does this open the door for that kind of discrimination in a sense? We've made so much progress, but we have so much more progress to go with diversity and inclusion. And you know, I hadn't even thought about that. But Susan, you had something to say as well. Sorry, I cut you off.
Kind of follow up on what Mike was talking about. What I'm actually hearing in pre-production calls and even seeing on set is that they are casting local whenever possible to avoid that travel thing. So roles that they might have brought somebody in from LA or New York for, they're looking harder at the Atlanta market. So, you know, then it's just a self-drive as opposed to, you know, flying and then having to clear a COVID hotel and, you know, then get them a car and all that kind of stuff. It's not just the expense, but it's the exposure where they could wind up with someone who tested clear before leaving, comes here, quarantines for 48 hours, gets tested, and, you know, maybe they picked it up along the way. So that's one little bit of news that I've heard that's really, you know, good news for Atlanta, but Mike's right, you know, the number of roles is less just to, you know, help contain the safety of their bubble, whether it's literal or figurative. So.
Yeah, and Jessica, I was going to
I've
ask
heard
you about
also
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Mike.
I've heard also in all the departments that they're down to essential personnel. It's not just the actors, but they're shrinking sizes of the operation everywhere. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing I've noticed, Jessica, is families and husband and wife teams. So it's not just local actors in Atlanta. If you're in a film market anywhere in the country and you're local, you know, that I think is going to help you if no matter where you are that has stuff going on. But you know, I've got a friend she's the only actor. Her kids aren't actors. Her husband wants nothing to do with it. And they just all got cast in a national commercial because they wanted a family unit that had quarantined together. How much of that are you seeing, Jessica?
A lot. And yeah, to address kind of the concern that Mike had brought up, I'm in his age range too. I've heard those concerns, but as far as casting goes, it's not affecting, at least what I have seen, in changing the description of what we need to cast. All it means is my job is a little harder because we have people in those demographics or age ranges that might be a little bit more concerned about doing the work. But I haven't seen like an adjustment in cast when it comes to those higher risk categories. What I have seen greatly reduced amounts of cast and projects that are greenlit are ones that are more self-contained. And you know, some of the projects that I've worked on, they have delayed production until 2021. Even though we went ahead and did the casting of it, people are just like, no, we want to make sure we get this right. As far as the families go, and also the local casting, 100%. The majority of the projects I work on, even though they want name talent, what I've had to do is I've created a database of people that would be more recognizable that are local here now, because so many people have relocated or maybe have a second home here. Maybe they're shooting another project that hasn't started back up. So I have that database. And then the other thing is I was asked by somebody close to me to create a database of actors who live or have family that are also actors. So I've had to create that. So for example, Mike and Hannah, they're on that list. So I have that so we can look at that. So one of the other things that has been discussed is when there's more intimate scenes, instead of having to unattached actors do those scenes, you have a stand-in with somebody that's a family member, a spouse or a girlfriend that they live with or something like that to help. So we can still capture those scenes that we want, but mitigate the risk, or at least reduce.
So let me get clarification. They are the stand-in or they are the actor? Because I can't imagine how awkward that would be for any actor to have a love scene with an actress and have their wife standing in and watching it. Like, that sounds awful. Is that what you mean?
No, I'll clarify that. So it's when we're first casting roles, we will look at who that fits the role that they're already related. But if we cast somebody who is not related, then when it comes to those close-up scenes where they would just do a tight shot where you can't really tell, then it might be, we might say, hey, Mike, bring your wife in, you know, or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Because, yeah, I was like, man, that'd be so awkward. I mean, you know, because those scenes are so awkward enough, which is another great thing, the intimacy coordinator thing. I'm so excited about that position.
Yeah.
When that position first started, people were like, I can't believe that. That's so dumb. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you, and I've had to explain. Yeah. People didn't understand how someone could abuse their position as a director because you're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
But
even aside
it's very
from the
easy to abuse that. Yeah.
Yeah, and even aside from the safety aspect, which is much needed with the intimacy coordinators, from an actor's perspective, at least what I'm hearing from the actors, having that, even as, like, again, aside from the safety, it's the comfort level. It's like, okay, I feel much more comfortable doing this because we're breaking it down. It's not this unknown, weird, okay, am I going to look awkward here? I mean, there's probably always going to be a little of that, but that intimacy coordinator helps with all of that. I think it's just such a bonus all around for it.
Yeah. So not every producer is great. A lot of, you know, I mean, I am one. You know, I'm a little too ethical for my own good. That gets me into trouble a lot, especially as a production manager who moved, you know, because my job as a production manager is protect the crew from the producers in the production company. And then as a producer, I'm like, oh, now my job is to screw everybody over. Yay. But joke, we're good people. We're humans too. But not, you know, there's a lot of people who talk a good game in this industry and don't necessarily back it up. You know, are you getting pushback from anyone, or has everybody been on board? I mean, are there people who are like, I don't, you know, because we do have people in our industry who don't believe in masks, who don't believe it's deadly, you know, who are just the COVIDiots and mask holes, as I like to call them. They exist in our industry. You know, hopefully they're smart enough to keep their mouth shut, but are you getting pushback? You know, what are the things that people have questioned or tried to push the boundaries on? And you know, this might be a question more for Susan and Jessica, because you're having those direct conversations. But what are some of those moments?
Well, I have to say, like, in general, people have been good, but early days, you know, trying to get back to work, there may have been productions who didn't think they had to take it as seriously, even with the Safeway Forward just coming out, or smaller budget productions. We used to hear, you know, I don't have that much money. What are the protocols for me? And honestly, they're the same. It's across the board. If you're Marvel or if you're a student film, you got to figure out how to make this work, or maybe it's not the right time for you to shoot. But, you know, you would have the thing where they try to pay lip service. But what they found, as Mike talked about before, is the unions and guilds are united on this. So I could hear from an IA member or their business agent, or, you know, somebody calls me from 600. Have you heard about this? There is a lot of kind of back channel communications going on. So if somebody does try to, you know, just slide under the radar and say they're going to do this, and you show up on set and everybody's got a gaiter on, or, you know, a bandana around their chin or something, you know, that gets called out real quick. And I just feel like everybody's done a great job of saying, we're taking this seriously, because the testing is what gets you to work, right? That's how everybody gets cleared. Okay, we're good to go to work. But it's the mask, it's the hand washing, it's the social distancing, it's all that keeps you safe in between those tests. So I think part of it has been just realizing the pandemic's not going to go away. Like, you're going to have to learn how to make a long-term plan for this. And you need to follow through every single day. Those COVID officers are not there just to, you know, take up another crew position. They are there to patrol the set and call people out on it. And honestly, even when I feel like I've had to talk to, you know, pull in the UPM and the COVID officer and AD and say, you guys just need to tighten up. Usually they're like, you're right, we've gotten slack. and they'll, pull it back together. I haven't had any recent flagrant, violations of it. Everybody's learning this process. So as time goes on, you've got a crew more experienced at implementing and maintaining the protocols. I think that's going to be easier. And as crew realize, there's some big productions that honestly have it as a firing offense. If you are caught not maintaining these protocols, you can be released because they realize one person screws up in a big way and that show can go down for 2 weeks. It's not good.
I had someone post on Facebook, and it's a person I did not make go, I like to know the stupid people and the crazies, so I'm in tune with like what's out in the universe, so I don't get rid of all the toxic people. I probably should. And there is a woman who works on set, and she went back to work early, and she talked about how hard it was with the mask. And I'm sorry, I was in Florida in my attic cleaning up bat poop and capturing mask with an N95. And it was like 100 degrees up there, and I had a mask on for 8 hours, and I took my breaks and I got my water. I survived. Like, you can wear a mask. I get so tired of hearing this. But her thing was, well, when I needed a break, I just, went to the bathroom and took off my mask and sat there for as long as I could. And I thought, Are you kidding? Like, now you're infecting the bathroom that everyone has to leave. Like, what don't you understand about this? And that's a person who I used to hire for a specific kind of job because this person has a specific skill set. I'm very sad that I will never hire that person again, because that comment made me realize you don't get it. Like, you are endangering people because you can't stand outside. Going to the bathroom is not the place to be. Stand outside. And it's those little moments that put everybody at risk that made me just want to strangle that person.
Yeah.
How do you, and that's, how do you police that? You can't. But the one thing everybody, I think, needs to understand is we're all watching. We all see your social media, Mike.
Right.
Yeah.
And the virus is an equal opportunity infector. It's not confined to the actors or the crew or certain departments, lighting or sound. It's everybody. It's everywhere. And even beyond the set, it's your families, it's your relatives, it's your kids. And so, we all, in many ways, have the same stake in this, whether it's for work or for our own safety of ourselves and our loved ones. And so it's equalized the playing field in that way so that we're all at risk. And so we all have to be diligent, which is why I think you're seeing people from each department or different areas, with their eyes open and not afraid to say, hey, watch out for this because it affects everybody.
Yeah. So Jessica, what have you been hearing?
Well, and I believe in the unions. I love the unions, but also on the non-union productions that I've worked on for a specific company, they are as strict as anything, as any other production or union out there. When you were talking about people who break protocol, they are released from production if that happens. I think it's only happened one time, and it had to do with something refusing to wear a mask or whatever at all times. It is something that they will be immediately removed. They have doubled and tripled the medical personnel on staff. You have to go to a tent with the medical personnel before you enter set, and you have to answer a questionnaire, and you have to have your temperature taken. There was an incident where one of the, I think it was the first AD, had a raised temperature, and they didn't let him in, and they had to wait and be checked out in all other areas and speak with the epidemiologist before he was cleared to enter set. And it just happened to be, it was 100 and some outside. But very, very strict protocols. It's also on these sets, it's been told if you see something, say something. They've empowered people that there's not going to be a repercussion, oh, that person's a troublemaker or anything like that, that this is for everybody's betterment and welfare. So if they do see something, they need to say something.
Excellent. All right. So what do you think, what have you seen that maybe needs improvement? Susan, you talked a little bit about this, not just that they need to tighten up their game. I mean, it's a real thing. Like, our job, we've been doing this so long, it's muscle memory. You know, I haven't taken a film job for 4 years, but I still have all that same muscle. I still eat too fast and walk really fast and talk fast, you know, all of those things that I was trained to do, you know. I mean, it's like, wait, I don't have to eat my lunch in 15 minutes and it doesn't have to be cold and congealed. I don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, it's just habit. And this is exhausting. But, you know, talk about some of the things that may have evolved just because we've had canaries in the coal mine. We've put the safe way forward into practice. And we went, oh, you know what, that thing doesn't work. Maybe we need to do it this way. Or, hey, have we thought about this? And we didn't even think about this. I mean, set dressers keep talking about, everybody forgets us. Nobody's talking about, you know, the art department.
Right.
You know, what are you seeing that has needed improvement, that is tweaked, that we didn't think about? Because there's so much to think about. I mean, there's so many moving parts.
Well, one of the things that's kind of come more into play is the weekends or the after work, you know, especially when people come in from out of town. Maybe they want to see Atlanta, eat at some of the great restaurants, whatever. And we're telling them, look, Georgia is not consistent on this mask thing. So if you do go to that restaurant, you have to realize what might be happening. You know, you need to keep yourself in your own bubble at all times for this production, for your job, for your safety. And I mean, I guess it's one thing if you come in for 3 days, it's another if you're in for a month or so. But, you know, we've had a couple of smaller budget productions, and I just told, you know, specifically told their cast, like, please don't go check out our great city. Come back at another time, but just remind to keep yourself in this bubble at all times. And I guess the other thing is just even realizing how much more space all of this takes now. I went to a show yesterday that has just started up. They're doing a lot of their work at stages. The ventilation thing has also become really important in the last month or so, how that you've really got to upgrade your ventilation. They had done all that, and the space that they had built around the swing set, they tripled it so that there is now more room for all the different departments to spread out. Video Village, you know, I still see that as sometimes being a log jam. Everybody wants to get in and look at that monitor. But now a lot of productions are doing it so that you can look at it on your phone. You know, they put it on a network, and that's not as great, but you can socially distance because, you know, the set where people are actually working and Video Village, you know, those are the two places that you really see people naturally kind of congregating. And you have to remind them, anybody on the set that's around an unmasked performer, wear the shield. And that includes director, you know, that includes props, your set decorator, all those people, you know, make sure that they are wearing their shield, and keep your distance. But, you know,
it's not just Atlanta. I interviewed Rob Hardy yesterday. We had a great conversation, and he's quarantining in a bubble in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even get to start. So I was like, are you prepping? He's like, oh, no. I have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Then if I pass quarantine, I'm allowed to start prep. They don't even want to put me on, you know, the show payroll. So what they're doing is they're bubbling a bunch of different people. So if like he doesn't pass quarantine, they've got somebody else to take his place. So they've got, you know, backup plans for backup plans. And I said, well, how's New York? He said, I don't know. I haven't left my hotel room. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I can't go outside. I don't get to go out and get takeout. I have a menu for places. They deliver everything to me. I don't get to leave my hotel room. I don't go to the gym. He's like, I love New York, and this is a great time of year, but I don't get to go see it. And I, you know, so it's not just here. There was something else that you said that that was interesting as well. I should have made a note. That's what my pen is for. Anybody else have something to add to what she was talking about?
Yeah, so those are a couple of the things that she mentioned, are a couple of the changes that I think that are going to stay because they were really good. One is that with the company I work with, they have monitors now on iPads, so all the departments don't congregate around Video Village, so they can watch. They've got this new program where they can watch from different areas, so they're staying separated. And then also you were talking about the congregation on the set. So they've established a step in, step out, so that the art department goes in and then they go out. then C&E goes in, and then they go out. So you don't have all those different groups because they have wristbands and color codes to keep people separated. So they eat lunch together, they come in together, they wait together. So they also step in and step out so that they're not all mixing together on the actual hot set.
I have heard a couple people that have been on set, both in props and in wardrobe and a little bit in makeup, talking about how because once you get the actor to the place where they can take off the mask and we're ready to shoot, you know, you've got resets. So now you've got to put the mask back on, bring somebody back in. Are the actors, you know, everything is segregated. Like, you're not allowed to touch the prop. The props person will reset it. You're not allowed to put water back in the bottle. You're not allowed to start another cigarette. You're not allowed to fix your own collar. You're not allowed to move that little bit of a blanket, you know, and reset and fix that. Are those rules relaxing for the actors to be able to do resets if it is something simple, so that they don't have to mask back up? Everybody does it, you know, so how is that working? Is that a thing, or is that not a thing?
I haven't really seen that being a thing yet. I have seen, like, the challenge is because, and I tell performers, you're the most vulnerable person on set, and you're also the most dangerous person on set, right? So when sometimes I'll run into an actor who doesn't really want to wear the mask or the face shield, whichever. Now there's another shield that kind of comes up this way instead of being attached, you know, to hair, which could mess with a wig. I just remind them, like, what you do between takes, it could affect the whole crew too. So everybody is masked to protect you, but at the same time, you need to be doing all the right stuff to protect all of them. I mean, I have seen minor, you know, prop resets if it's just something, you know, reshifting a glass or something that the actor will have their hands on. But mostly I still see the same thing. It's just actors step out, people come, or if actors are still on set, then shields come on for props or wardrobe or whoever needs to make the adjustment. You know, it's just another layer of protection that has to happen. Everything takes, like, more space, more time, and more money these days.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Jessica, do you have anything to add to that? Have you seen that with any of your shows?
Yeah, so if it's a prop where the actor's already touching it during the scene, then if you want to call it contaminated, even though that actor's already been cleared and has been tested negative, it is I can't remember the word, but it's already been touched by that actor. So it is better for that actor to do the reset of that particular prop. If it's a new prop or a prop that another actor has touched before another actor touches, then that needs to be sanitized and reset by the proper crew person. But if, like, let's say there's an actor who's carrying a file folder and they're like, okay, reset. Well, then that actor needs to put the file folder back instead of having another individual come in and touch it.
That makes sense. So, you know, winter is coming. You know, I'm a big proponent of shooting outside. I don't care what your ventilation is like. I am ultra cautious, and I don't have any health concerns, and I don't want to have health concerns for the rest of my life because I get this. I've got friends who are those long haulers. I don't want to ever be one of them. It's only a matter of time until I probably get it. We're all eventually, you know, I mean, even with a vaccine, this thing isn't going away. It's going to be like an influenza potentially. You know, we have a long way to go to herd, you know, this idea that herd immunity is a thing. Like, sure, a couple million dead 5 years from now, maybe, you know, but it's just not going to happen. So winter's coming, and winter comes everywhere. It comes in LA, although not as hard. And I personally believe it's going to be a rough winter this year. I haven't looked at my farmer's almanac, but everything is leading me to think it might be a little colder, unlike last year that was a little milder. Everything's going to have to move inside. Things are getting trickier. How do you think, you know, there's all these September shows that are popping up. You know, everybody's in prep now, getting ready to probably shoot October. Everybody's trying to finish up before the holidays. You know, instead of our usual TV and films that just take that 2-week break and come back. What do you think? I mean, if everybody comes out of September, October, okay, maybe winter happens, but what are you guys hearing as far as productions that are looking for November, December, January, February? Or are you hearing anything at all? Because it's too early and we don't know what the hell's happening yet.
I hear people are trying to get it done before December, even before November. And I think that whether it's spoken or not, people are concerned about what happens when people have to move more inside. And there are some talks about things starting first quarter of 2021, but it's just chatter. I think that nobody knows really what's going to happen as we enter those months and the flu season starts. And, you know, I think everybody should be getting a flu shot I'd rather not get COVID when I have the flu, because I don't think I'd come back. So, I think that's I think flu is just a concern overall, but one of the benefits, if there is one, of the COVID era is I think it's going to help protect us from all these other things. You know, if we're doing the hand washing and we're wearing the masks and we're being more observant and careful about all the protocols for COVID, then shoot, you know, we probably aren't going to get the flu because we're being so careful. But it takes everybody, right? It's like I can be as careful as I want to be, but if the person near me isn't, then, you know, it kind of falls a little bit.
What do you guys, Mike, Susan, what are you guys hearing about this winter?
But it's really busy. Like the next couple of months are going to be kind of insane between the shows that were scheduled to come and are still coming, the ones that didn't get wrapped before the pandemic and are coming back, and people who are trying to get a jump on the winter. So, you know, I think the people who aren't in right now, I think have a little bit of wait and see. We've had a couple of shows push out a little further. And, you know, that's them just trying to take the safest approach for their production. But like Jessica said, I think one of the side benefits is people not coming to set with a runny nose or, you know, a croupy cough. They can't. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's from COVID or the flu or, you know, you're just having a really bad allergy attack. You can't come to set and cough all over people anymore. It won't be allowed, and that goes all, you know, all the way up to the director. Like, people have to be healthy to come to set. So I think that's going to make people take better choices, both on set and, you know, in real life, to stay healthy, because those COVID screeners are absolute. You know, if you have a temperature, again, it doesn't matter if it's COVID or, you know, you've got a little bit of you know, a bad cold, you're not going to be able to get on set.
Mike?
I think there's, I go all along with all this stuff, that it's going to help us be able to do things in a healthier, safer way in general. But as far as productions pushing out and stuff, you know, I think there are some, especially in television, that, you know, they would love to be able to push out a little farther, but yet, you know, you get too removed from your audience, too removed from whatever your air date is or your schedule is. Then you get forgotten, and then maybe somebody comes up with another idea, or another show gets hot, and then there's no room for you. And so, you know, it's a catch-22. But I still think it'll, especially because of the weather changes, it's all going to still be productions that are with fewer people, fewer sets, fewer locations, safer places that are more controllable. And in this case, because the weather's going to be different, it's going to be indoors somewhere, which means as few people as possible. And yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be risky. And then it all comes down to people's behavior on the outside, and what they do when they're not on set. And you know, that's one of the cool things about what we do, is it's such an ensemble work that we all really have to have each other's back. And in the case of the virus, we really all have to be on the same page. Otherwise, we're all going to suffer. Much like, you know, when we go out in public these days, especially in Georgia, you know, some people wear masks, a lot of people don't. Many people make it a political statement or not. And there's less of that sense of cooperative, collective care of each other. And it's more of an every man for himself kind of thing out there in the big world. Whereas in our industry, we really all have to look out for each other, because it's always been that way. When we all win, we all win, because it's such a team effort, what we do. And every department, every area, every part of the production counts. And in this case, now more than ever, because, you know, if we really look out for each other and keep everybody safe and healthy, then we're all going to be able to keep doing what we love to do. So we all have a stake in it in that way. And so I think in the end, it's going to be a positive. But as far as, you know, the changes in the weather, you know, I think production is going to go indoors, and hopefully it'll all work out.
Yeah, which kind of segues into kids are back in school and it's winter, you know, so there's a lot of stuff that's out of our control. You know, I mean, a lot of people are homeschooling their kids. How do you homeschool your kids if you're going to go off and work on set? There's nobody there to take care of, you know, so these support structures are really important, but then you're bringing a support structure in, a nanny, a grandparent. You know, I mean, this is a real hardship for a lot of working actors. You know, some of their kids are off at school. That makes them more vulnerable. You know, I mean, they say for a while, oh, younger kids are okay. Now we're finding younger kids might actually contain more of the virus than less. Then, you know, I mean, we're all pointing to those rotten teenagers and college kids. I can't believe they're out there. Every last one of us would have been the same damn way. You know I would have been one of those jerks out there breaking the rules in college, partying it up, getting sick and getting everybody sick. You know, as soon as I tried to shake my old lady finger, I was like, who am I kidding? Like, I was a total asshole. I would have been breaking all the rules. So, you know, all of these things, and, you know, we can't really, there's only so much we can control with all of that. So how does that dynamic, you know, I mean, we talked about, well, there's ageism, perhaps. There might be some, you know, racism, perhaps, because of the who the virus goes after. Well, now you got people with kids. So, you know, does that become a thing? Like, hey, do you have kids at home? You know, do you have to sequester yourself from them? Is there any thought about kids in this mix that you guys have had conversations about?
Well, I mean, only personally, because we have a brood here, but they're all, but our county is all virtual. So that brings in a whole other thing. All of our callbacks are virtual now. So that means I have a constant mute, unmute, because I have kids everywhere and, you know, doing their own thing. But as far as actors and if they have children, I think there's no way to really control that. And I don't think it's right to discriminate in any way, whether it's ageism, racism, or people who have a family, because who's to say they're not just doing something uber careful and protective. And so just to say they have kids, then you're saying, oh, because you have kids, there's no way you're being protective. And that's the kind of thing I feel about the non-union productions. There are some non-union productions that are very, very protective. It's just not an across the board. I'm so sorry about that. It's not an across the board thing, but I think the testing is what's really going to help determine who can be safe on set, you know? So I just don't think that you can put the child thing into a discussion as far as whether or not you cast somebody.
I completely agree. It was just a thought that I was having, and I was like, huh,
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody, you know.
And if
Susan,
you're
I
having
think you're
that
about to
thought,
say
somebody
something.
else is.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, of course, I know we're not mentioning names, but everybody knows, like, the wonderful bubble that Tyler Perry has designed. I mean, that thing is rock solid, let me tell you. And I mean, I don't know how the local people are doing that. You know, for 2 weeks, they're at camp quarantine, and that's all there is to it, you know. So there, in those specific instances, you do have to figure out how to manage your household. But I'll also say on the other side, like, we are asking productions to look carefully at how they cast children and how they schedule minors on set. You know, those days need to be bunched closely together. Their shooting time needs to be bunched closely together, so they're not all hanging out on set or, you know, around adult people as well. I mean, they get tested with everybody else. They still have to wear the same protections, but we just want people to take a really good look at how minors are treated on sets and limit their exposure both to the cast and crew, and, you know, to any possible contamination. So, you know.
Yeah, and
Bless you, Mike.
yeah.
Thank you.
And with the kids, the same thing goes for their parents or guardians who bring them to set. They also have to sign the protocols. They also have to be tested. They also have to follow all the same things as any other crew or cast member. So, and that's another consideration when we have children. It's like, gosh, do we have to cast a minor because it means another body on set? So that's a discussion that's always there.
Right.
What do you think is the hardest thing for people to not comply with, but deal with? I mean, it feels very exhausting. There's another conversation I have later with a producer who has just started back to work. You know, he's over 50. And, you know, for him, the 10-hour day thing is such a blessing. He's like, I'm so exhausted. Normally, I would love to book this conversation with you after the end of my workday, but I'm finding wearing a mask, having to think about staying 6 feet apart, it's a whole section of my brain that has to focus on all of this when my brain is already overwhelmed with all the stuff that it means to be a producer. You know, it's just mentally exhausting, almost more than it's physically exhausting. What are some of the things that you think, Susan, you know, and Jessica, you, because you guys are on, well, you may not be on set, but you're dealing with those productions, and, you know, you've got connections to those shows. What is it that's the hardest thing for, you know, actors or crew to kind of endure in this new normal?
Well, I think that the hardest habit that I see people, it's hard for them to break, and for good reason, is both the social distancing and the mask wearing. Because on sets, you're used to having conversations very close to people and very low tones, especially if they're rolling. But, you know, it's like there's not a lot of standing 6 feet apart from each other and having a three-way conversation about the setup for the next shot, you know? Like there's a lot of hushed tones kind of thing. So I guess it's going to have to be texting or whatever. But those are the two things I think that the mask wearing feels, it feels emotionally challenging at times, you know, because you're so aware of it. For me, I did finally get used to wearing it, and I don't think about it all the time, but you've got to kind of go through that process. And that socially distancing thing, I mean, I've been on a set visit before and had a COVID officer come up and tell me and the producer to step back, because we kind of naturally gravitated to be closer to each other, especially when they're rolling, you know? So, you know, the quiet on the set now really has to shut down a lot of conversations. But this is a community that is close to working literally on top of each other. And it's a sea change as far as habits and, you know, just effective ways to make this all work. But those are the two that I see people unknowingly breaking, you know, not eating on set.
Yeah.
That's a small challenge, but yeah.
That reminded me of
I
another
think
thing.
the overall, sorry, I just, yeah, the overall disruption of human connection is just completely antithetical to who we are as artists and creative people. And I know that the separation that I've had from friends since the last time I was on a set, you know, we can do Zoom calls like this all day, but I wouldn't really call this human connection. The fact that we can't meet for a drink, or we can't go out to dinner, or if we are together, that we have to treat each other as if we're all infected. I mean, that sort of that disruption of human connection, I think is I think going to have some long-term effect on people, because I know depression has become a big issue during this time. I know that for me personally, and a lot of other people I know, this has not been a wonderfully creative time because of all of the turmoil that's been caused here. I don't necessarily feel fabulously creative. You know, we forced a little bit of it, but it's the emotional disruption that's happened here is going to have some lingering effects, and I think it's been really difficult for people who work in our world, because it's just not who we are.
And we're huggers. Like, people don't realize that, like, our community, while it may be huge and there's a ton of people working in this industry, we all are huggers. Like, I meet actors and I give them a hug. I welcome them on set. That's what we do. You know, there's some that aren't into hugging, and that's okay. I'll shake your hand or not touch you if that's your thing. But, you know, I mean, when I see Susan, I hug her. When I see Jessica, I hug her. When I see Mike, I hug him. That's what we do. And that is very odd to not do that. And the intimacy of conversation is so true that happens on set, because you know, I'm a person who speaks loudly and I don't have an inside voice, but I try, because we do need to have, you know, I have to walk over to somebody and whisper in their ear so my client or the actor doesn't hear, or you're giving an actor a specific note where you want to whisper it in their ear so maybe the other actor doesn't hear that. And, you know, so it's not just a bit of being quiet. It's also a bit of sharing knowledge with someone that maybe you don't, you know, especially with actors, you want your actor to have a note that the other actor doesn't know about, so that that actor can have a fresh response to something new, you know. And all of those moments are kind of gone, and texting takes a long time. I mean, sure, we have walkie-talkies and we've always used them, but I still spend a lot of my moments walking up to somebody, standing next to them and having a conversation. And that has definitely become a very weird thing. You know, I talked about that early on, thinking, what is, my degree is deviant behavior and abnormal psychology and the psychology of advertising, but that deviant behavior section of like, how is this going to change our interactions? Is this going to change our ability to be vulnerable, especially as an actor? You have to be vulnerable. You have to have an open, you know, an open heart and an open mind, and be very vulnerable to create these other people. And how does this pandemic affect that? And that's what Karen Cisse is holding a panel later on in the conference to talk just about that, because I think it's a really, really important point that you bring up. Jessica, did you have something to say about whatever the hell we were just talking about?
Yeah, and actually,
brain.
It actually agrees with all three of you. In the beginning, I think one of the struggles on set was the masks, but I don't see that as much anymore because people are so used. It's been months now, and the smart people are wearing them anyway outside. So that's a thing. The social distancing. I was on set just because I had to fill in because we didn't have someone test in time. And it was difficult in the beginning. The social, it's like this, the habit of like, oh, I want to go, you know, say something to this person. And like Susan experienced, I had the COVID compliance person go, back off, you know, and I'm like, oh crap, you know. And it's like, I'm uber paranoid about it. And I forgot, you know, and I had to have that compliance officer there. And then to address what Mike was saying, the creative thing, what I'm seeing in because I've held dozen callbacks since June, all virtual. What I am seeing now, because our actors aren't just doing it for the job, they are creative beings. I'm seeing more and more people who are offer-only talent who are saying, no, I'll read. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, we had callbacks yesterday and the day before, and I had some people that were people I looked up to in the 80s, and I was all giddy that they were actually reading, but they were so wanting to have that moment of creative collaboration between human beings, you know? And then to address what you were saying, Linda, the hugging, you know, that's probably one of the hardest things. Is there's just this natural tendency when you see somebody that you hadn't seen in a while to want to hug them, and it's like you're like, air hug, you know. And I think that's probably one of the suckiest things of all of this.
Yeah. So this is a weird thing that I hadn't thought about. It makes perfect sense. And one of my grips, key grip, is off in Colorado on a job. Maskne is what they're calling it. The acne that is created from wearing a mask. A lot of crew members, because they're wearing masks, even if they change them 3 times a day, you know, they're still having this problem. And for an actor, holy crap, like, you know, sure, makeup covers things, but let's be honest, makeup doesn't cover things. And, you know, it had never occurred to me. Or somebody like Mike, you've got a little bit of a goatee you're over there playing with. I mean, do you have to shave
Not
that
that it's
off?
covering
Because
anything up or anything, but
yeah, but I mean, if you've got a beard and I'm casting somebody with a beard, you know, is that mask really protecting them? Because that beard is keeping, you know, I mean, if you get something big enough to cover, you know, depending on how big your beard is, but you know, those are a couple things I hadn't thought about. Is casting with beards or facial hair that inhibits a mask a thing? And have you, you know, I think acne from masks may be something that actors need to be thinking about, especially as we go into winter, more things move inside. I mean, this seems like a crazy thing, but it's like, who would have thunk? Any crazy thoughts on my strange observations?
I hadn't heard that, but I'm just wondering, and I'm not like the skin expert by any means, but I'm just wondering about maybe powder, you know, to keep you from sweating around the edges or wherever it's coming. But that's new to me. I haven't heard of this.
It's not necessary. It's that the mask, because you're wearing it all day, is filling with bacteria, or it gets moist. Like if you're out in the heat, you know, like this summer, I mean, how many masks would you sweat through? You know, I mean, I know that my N95, when I was up in that attic, got really wet and gross really fast. And luckily I bought a bunch right before the pandemic so I could change them out, but they were kind of gross. And if you're running around just in a cloth mask outside all day, running errands in the Georgia heat, like, you know, you're running errands, you're not out there for 12 hours a day. You're not in the sun. But yeah, I mean, that's a thing. And actors are taking them off and putting them on and taking them off and putting them on. Are they constantly, every time they take a mask off, are they getting a new one to put it back on? So it's just something, you know, I know it's crazy, but maybe it's more crew related, but that may be something that an actor needs to think about. My makeup artist gave a whole list of things that you can do, certain products you can use and things that you can put on your face to help with that. But that may be a real thing that actors need to consider as well. I know it sounds crazy, but.
Wow.
I have not had that problem yet, but I'll let you know if I do.
Well, you know, the beard thing though, is that a thing? I mean, in the beginning, they were saying, you know, if you didn't have a clean face, that a mask couldn't properly adhere and be tight. You know, I think yours looks like it's, you know, I mean, a goatee is a little bit easier. My mask comes under my chin. Is a full bearded actor going to be able to work?
That has not come up yet. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
I hadn't either.
I know now for onset, they do have these shields, you know, because of the makeup and the wigs and things like that, that come up this way, but it's just a shield. It's not a mask. And I've seen the things that are almost like, it's kind of like a big square bubble that actors can kind of go in, that sets on their shoulders, and that would keep it off their face. But I haven't heard an actor yet that likes that. It's a little awkward, but you know, they're going to do what they have to do to you know, keep working and stuff. So I'll have to ask some actors if they run into mask knee.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the beard, I mean, my job as a producer is to think of all the things that could go wrong. You know, what are all the things that might be a problem? And just, you know, looking at Mike doing this, and I'm like, oh yeah, the beard thing, you know? But hire Mike, because he's fabulous, and it all fits in his mask.
Like that idea.
Do you guys have advice for actors who, I mean, I guess, Jessica, you're not a casting agent. So this is, you know, unfortunately the agents have been busy. I couldn't snag one for this, but, you know, are you having actors reach out to you to say, hey, I want to work, or no, don't call me? I mean, I know there's kind of a wall supposedly between you and actors. But what does an actor do? Mike, you want to work, I assume. I don't know. But, you know, as an actor, what should an actor be doing right now to talk to their agent and let them know whether they are available or not? Or if you're an actor and you get a call, the last thing I would think you want to say is, I'm not interested in working because I'm afraid of COVID. You'd simply say, I'm sorry, I'm not available. You know, I'd love to work on this. You know, you don't want to, because if you tell people I don't want to work, you're not going to get a call. And if you change your mind, it may be too late. Like, how are things like that being handled?
Is that for Mike or me? I'm sorry.
You go
Anybody, I thought Mike as an actor.
Okay.
Okay, well, here's my thing. First of all, I think most all of us are available to work. But I think that it is fair for you to talk to your agent if you feel like you're in a high risk category, if you are immune compromised, like I am, and my agents are aware of that. Not that that's going to necessarily inhibit them from submitting me or putting me up for jobs. But when the discussion starts to happen, when we get to that level, they know the issues that I've had, and so they'll check and make sure. I'm sure most of the time everything's going to be fine. But I always believed in that honest relationship with your agent anyway. But I think typically actors should not be calling casting directors saying I'm available. That's just bad practice. I think
Yes.
for actors, you have to really, really develop a super hyper attitude of being flexible and being amenable and having a smile on your face and a positive attitude, because this is difficult for everybody. Every department, across the whole operation is all having to relearn how they do their job, including us. So the more amenable you are to change, which, honestly, as actors, we're supposed to be chameleons anyway. It should kind of come natural, but in some cases it doesn't. So just kind of roll with it, go with it. These Zoom auditions, I'll be honest with you, are really hard because again, it's that weird kind of human connection that's not really there, as if you were in the room talking to somebody. But you got to learn. I mean, I just did one night before last with this room full of people in LA, and it was weird. It worked, it was fine, but it still feels uncomfortable. So you got to just get used to that and just accept it. It's just going to be the way it is. You can't refuse it. You can't turn it down, and you can't insist on in person or any of that. You just got to go with it. And so I think the more you have that spirit of just kind of going with it and adapting to the changes that we all have to deal with, the better off you're going to be at making the best of this and getting back on the horse and getting back to work, which is what we all want to do.
The audition process, there is something about being in the room. I have been a person who absolutely hates taped auditions. I can't stand it. And, I do in-person classes, not for acting, but for other aspects of film production. And I hosted back in March, when we all thought we would get our collective shit together and we wouldn't be here now still dealing with all this stuff. I decided to stop teaching classes. You can't teach people how to get into the industry when there's no industry for them to get into. The ethics of that were just wrong. But I taught one last class in March, right? Basically the Saturday, I think was the 18th. I think the 17th maybe was that Friday that everything shut down. I had a class on the 18th. I went with it. And all I could liken it to was being a stand-up comedian where everybody else was in another room. So you're not getting that feedback. You can't read the room. You can't really look around and see the little twinkle in somebody's eye if they get what you're saying, or the furrowed brow where they're like, what the hell is he doing? You can't read the room anymore. And I can imagine how difficult as an actor that is, because there is something, it's just like the difference between being in theater, live theater performance and the electric nature of that, as opposed to, being on set and, doing that take 17 times, I mean, that's gotta be weird. How has that gone for you, Jessica? Do you have, how's that been for you guys?
At first I was groaning about it. I love in person. I've become so fond of so many of the local talent here that it's almost like, oh, there's so-and-so again. And it's just fun to see what they create in front of you. That's my favorite part of casting, is seeing the actor take the black and white and making something cool that I never even thought about. But I was pleasantly surprised about how easy it was to do this via Zoom. And I'm not trying to promote Zoom as a company or whatever, and I will be transitioning to another format soon, because they're going to have that ready and it's going to be amazing. But I don't know how difficult it is for the actors. I know that they all seem to put on a good face and a good front. I feel like every time I do it, there's a good chunk of them that say, this is my first time doing this. And we're like, look, it's okay. You know, so many people are having trouble, or, you know, and no matter how much time you give them with the instructions, they'll come on and they're sideways and they're like, you got to flip it, you know, or the sound doesn't work or something, but we're all patient with it. And all of my callbacks, I have the producers and the director on with me. So we're all there and we could all talk and collaborate. But I just don't know when it's going to switch back to in person. I don't see that yet. I can't even predict when that might occur. So I think to try to make the experience for the actors as comfortable, as pleasant, and as fun as it can be, we try to be relaxed and have fun with them, because we know that they're probably freaking out, especially when they come on and they're having all this technical trouble. All of us are like, oh my God, they're probably freaking out right now. So we try to make it easier for them as well. But I don't even remember the original question. I'm so sorry.
No,
start rambling.
you did good. Mike,
Okay.
did you have something to add to that?
No. I just
I felt
agree.
like
I just, those flashes of my experiences going past while she was describing all that. Yeah.
So, Susan, I want to talk about when things go bad. What happens? I'm on set. I see something. I want to say something. How does that happen? Who do I call? Is it a bat signal in the sky? You know, I mean, are these, you know, are there separate COVID hotlines, or is this just the safety hotline that SAG-AFTRA has? What do I do if I see, what is the protocol for you guys? If, you know, I mean, I'm a PA, I see something weird, I say something to my second AD. We're all used to our internal chain of command. Should I go to my internal chain of command first? Do I go to the COVID coordinator? Do I wait for it to be resolved before I call a SAG-AFTRA hotline? You know, whether I'm an actor or a crew member, I'm still allowed to call these hotlines. Whether I'm in the union or not in the union, I'm still allowed to call these hotlines. So talk a little bit more about that. Walk us through that, Susan.
Yeah, I think there's the standard channels of communication where if you're, you know, crew, you go to your head of department, but the COVID officer is also supposed to be autonomous, and their job is sort of like the intimacy coordinator. To protect the intimacy coordinator is the advocate for actors in an intimate or hyper exposed scene, to keep them safe, get production what they want, but keep people safe. The health safety supervisor has that role, but in a health context. So they are supposed to be. I'm not saying that it's always worked out this way, but they're supposed to be autonomous. They make decisions. They keep the set safe and healthy. They're a resource as well. But of course, you know, I'm always giving out my cell phone number for any actor on a SAG-AFTRA set, 404-977-1807, or call 188 Safer Set. And now I just had a blank on that, but we have a Safer Set number. I'd rather them call me directly, and we can get right on it. We can call production immediately. What's going on? Get the situations, talk to the other unions. I mean, because set medics are also a great resource. I mean, I've built a lot of really wonderful relationships with our set medics, and what's really going on the ground over there. You know, production may have one view of it. Do I know other crew members? Or, you know, can I talk directly to the cast, or, you know, to other cast members? I'll go. Like, we have access to all the sets, so go check it out. And there, you know, it's been rare that people have intentionally done something they weren't supposed to. But you immediately get on it. You alert the other unions, have them call their people, what's going on. I mean, if something is suspicious or needs to be corrected, word gets through the community really fast these days, because people are very concerned. It's people's health we're talking about. I'm not talking about negotiating a meal penalty. We're talking about people's lives. So yes, call me, talk to the head of your department, or talk to the health safety supervisor, but let somebody know. And if you're not getting the answers you want, always call me, and I don't care which union or guild you're in.
And I appreciate that. And that's one of the great things I love about SAG-AFTRA. So you're visiting sets a lot. I know Melissa and the staff in the office locally, and I'm sure all around the country, are working diligently to make sure that the productions know exactly what is necessary and that they meet those protocols, which are costly and time consuming. And every producer needs to know that in advance. How often have you been getting calls? Like, you know, are you getting lots of calls? Probably in the beginning, you probably got lots of calls. Maybe those have slacked off. Like, what are you, you know, I don't know if you can talk about it. Obviously not any specific show, but you know, how did the calls come in hot and heavy and then kind of wind down? Are they coming up higher? Is it kind of hit or miss? What are you seeing with kind of emergency calls asking for you to come do a site visit?
It's initially, they were just checking on a lot of problems. A lot of people had questioned cast and crew. Is this what we're supposed to be doing? Is this the kind of test we're doing? There was also trying to get everybody on the same page for the language you speak around testing. You know, everybody knows all the acronyms, NPT, PCR, you know, lab-based rapid test, all those kind of things. So initially, and we're still doing this, we have a pre-production safety call with every single production, whether it's a short project agreement, a one-off spa, or, you know, it's a continuation of a hit series that's been working here. So we go through all their protocols, make sure everybody's on the same page. We follow up if they don't have the details. So we all know what to expect when I do a set visit. The calls we've had, and there haven't been that many in Georgia, I'm kind of in touch with the other reps around the country, have mostly been where a production is decided for one reason or another not to take this stuff as seriously. They're not wearing their masks, you know, consistently. And this happened, I'd say, earlier this month. There was a lot of, we're all being tested, why do I have to do all this other stuff? And that's where you just have to have one conversation, two conversations, three conversations, start going to the set 3 times a week, and they're going to start doing what they need to. You know, I feel like I've got great relationships, but they don't want to see me every other day. But that's what we do if that's, you know, what it's going to take to keep people adhering to the protocols. You know, other than somebody just, you know, making a poor decision, you know, around testing, you know, that's the only thing. If somebody tests positive, you've got to be super clear on what happens next, you know, and that protocol has to be followed, or people start getting nervous because there are no secrets on set. I mean, if there's an issue, it goes around that place like wildfire. So if I hear one person, I know probably in the next half an hour, I'm going to hear from 5 more. So yeah, it's again, it's mostly just kind of maybe being a little slack around the standards. Initially it was people maybe not doing the right kind of testing, which as it turned out, they didn't really understand all the testing. So we've done some education on that. We're educating our members on what they should expect and who to call. But again, for the most part, because we're also the market that is out there in front. We came out earlier than anybody else. I had 2 productions. I'm like, why'd you choose Georgia? Because you're open. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's the only place that they could shoot in the country at the time. So we've learned a lot of lessons here in the local market, you know, between the guilds and unions and cast and crew. Like, I feel like we're pretty well versed in what to expect from a set. And if it's not happening, people will call you.
And that's something I'm very proud of for the state of Georgia. You know, the fact that even though I'm not happy we closed last and opened first, and we're doing a lot of stupid, you know, the Georgia government, I'm not happy with. Like, they're fools, in my opinion. Sorry, I will say it. You know, what are you going to do to me? Yeah, you guys can't comment. I can. You know, bad. But I'm very proud of our industry because we've gone, well, crap, we're open. We got to work. Let's figure this out. Let's come together. Let's be smart. Let's educate ourselves. I mean, hell, the CDC is here, even though that is now become problematic to an extent, because that has, a lot of the CDC has gotten politicized as well, which does not help this. But I'm really, really proud to be part of a community that has come together and has worked so hard and understands the importance and the stakes. If we blow it, we blow it. And that, that's very scary, but it's really exciting to see how everybody has come together to make this work. So thoughts, do you have any advice for anyone? I think independent film is having a real hard time right now, bless their hearts, but I can't afford to shoot an independent film based on those protocols. Susan, I know exactly, you talked about this earlier. They're like, well, I'm just a really small group and, maybe we're going to film down in South Georgia and we'll all be quarantined for a month and we can't afford all this. Well, too bad. That it breaks my heart that this is killing independent film because we don't have the budgets. But at the same time, I'd rather have it kill parts of independent film that don't have the budgets than kill the people making the independent film. So for me, that's a totally fair trade-off. It's not fun, it's not enjoyable, but you can make that film next year, go in your backyard with your iPhone and make something cool. Let this be a creative challenge if you have any creative juices left in you at this point. Do you guys have any advice for productions starting up that are looking to audition? What are some things, Jessica, I'll start with you, that in the audition process are helpful for you in COVID that may have changed the way you do business?
And this has been a learning curve because I have many clients and new clients. And it's a learning curve and taking on that client and saying, okay, you know what, my new rule is if they don't already have a protocol in place, then I can't take it until they have that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't even want to start. And part of it is a selfish thing because if they don't have it and then I do all this work, it's not going to happen because they don't have it. And then I've wasted my time. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of it, is having to vet clients more. If it's a client who says, we're doing this, but we know we're not going to shoot until next year or something like that, then okay, well, let's talk about it. And then before we finalize any deal memos, let's look at those protocols. And thank goodness, because of my relationship, that I know what a good protocol looks like. So I've learned over the last several months of some of the key things to look for and say, oh, wait, you don't have this? Okay, you're doing small locations, what? So that's kind of the biggest thing for me as far as casting goes. And for the actors, I would just encourage, ask questions. Don't ever be afraid of asking a question. And if you're still too timid, have your agent ask the question.
That reminds me, on the SAG-AFTRA side, there has been a lot of talk of COVID waivers. Those are a no-go, correct? Do not ever sign a COVID waiver.
Nope, absolutely not.
Never.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost completely forgot about that. And, I know that is a thing, and younger actors who don't know better, who may not have great agents, or may not have, may slide into the system without people in place to educate them. That's super, super important. Susan, from a SAG-AFTRA perspective, how much farther in advance? I mean, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of stuff to read. It's been a long time since I've been the person in the room with Melissa signing all that paperwork, but I remember it was a lot. There was a lot to read. There was a lot to do. And now with the negotiations and the protocols, and there's so much more to talk about. If I have a film and I want to come to the Screen Actors Guild to get this contract done, should we add more time to the conversation? Should we be reaching out earlier? What is your advice for somebody who's gonna, not walk into the office anymore? Call Melissa locally to get this together. How much longer does the process take now than it used to?
We've actually started to tell people that they need to reach out to us about a month, at least a month in advance, especially for independent. Like if you don't already have, the relationship built up and we know what to expect and, we're aware of your financial assurances and all those kind of things, you need at least a month because
You're saying a month before, sorry to interrupt. You're saying a month before prep or a month before shooting?
A month, ideally a month before prep so that you can know what you need to build into your prep schedule. What kind of testing regimen needs to be done even in your prep schedule? What are the PPE? Like you need to plan your production around how things work in these COVID days, your locations, interiors, exteriors, what's the ventilation system, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we recommend at least 6 weeks would be better, but at least a month out of prep. But you need to be far enough down the road so that you know what your casting situation is going to look like. We don't want to just say, well, we're thinking about doing this movie in 6 months. So it's that window, I'd say, 6 weeks to 2 months out, get your stuff ready enough for the signatory process, but also have your COVID plan in place. And we've got some resources. I'll go ahead and say this. There's SAG-AFTRA on our SAG-AFTRA website. It's a page called Back to Work, and there are some resources there. There's some testing companies, the testing protocols that we expect. The Safeway Forward is there, the white paper. Supposedly the AMPTP agreement around all these safety protocols will be coming out fairly soon.
Yeah, I'm like, I've been hearing this for so long, but I mean, it's so complicated. Like I have to hold grace for this because it is incredibly complicated. There are a million moving pieces. There are things that need to be addressed that people haven't thought of because there's so many million pieces of the puzzle. But yeah, they need to get their shit together and make it happen. Like we need to get better. Sorry, I'm trying to see, Mike, you took the higher road before, and then I went, took the highway to hell. And now I'm trying to give everybody, come on, people, we need to get back to work, get your shit together, get it done. Sorry.
I know.
Continue with your resources, Susan.
Yeah, so anyway, those papers are there, and hopefully, I really do feel like they are getting much closer to getting that out. And that should be the final piece of the puzzle. The other thing I would say, though, is if you are working on an independent, especially like a non-union production, look at what is being required for union shows and expect that same kind of thing. And if not, just be careful. Like Jessica said, don't waste your time going all the way through the process. And at the end of the day, it's somebody who says, well, I don't believe in COVID, so we're not doing all that. So ask those questions up front. Find out, that they're adhering to the protocols that are keeping people safe.
Yeah. Mike, do you have advice? Even if it's just, actors, how to deal with the creativity issues and the mind messing pandemic?
Well, whenever, I've always told actors for years, whenever you have this kind of downtime, you try to find ways to be productive. And that usually will center around, polishing up your materials. If you need new headshots, if you need to redo your resume, if you need to update your website or your web presence on the casting pages like Actors Access or Casting Networks. And if you need to re-edit your demo, or if you've got some new clips that you need to add to your reel so that you can get all that stuff in shape so that when the emails start coming or the phone starts ringing, that it's done and you're ready and you can empower your agent to go out there and promote yourself. You should take advantage of using that time. I would also tell people to take classes, but of course that's pretty difficult right now. But, whatever you can do to work the muscle, whether it's, maybe read, I've seen people do table reads by Zoom or, working on some scenes through this kind of a format, anything to work the muscle to keep yourself sharp so that when the audition comes and it counts, that you're not rusty, and that you're ready, and just to be ready. And then, like I said before, just do the best you can to be adaptable and just try to go along with what is the new normal, and don't expect things to return to normal because those days are gone. This is a totally different world now. And I think a lot of this is going to be around for a while. So the more adaptable you are, and that you get used to that and get more comfortable with it, the better off you'll be.
Yeah. I think the big challenge people have is trying to stay creative and not letting, depression take over. Working out is incredibly important. You don't have to go to a gym. If you are in a place that they allow you outside, get into your yard, yard work, yardio, you can get a good workout, you can, get one of those little pedestals for your bike and make an indoor bike. My husband he's an assistant director and he's been working out. He's never had the time to get up and, he stretches every morning and does a little yoga routine, but has never had a chance to really lift weights. And, he's bulked up. Like, I'm sitting on my butt, eating and cooking, and he's looking good. He's out there working out, but he needs that outlet. I stepped away from the industry. So I've been, I've got our writer's room that we virtually meet twice a week, which has been really nice. I have projects, I build stuff, I garden, like I have all these activities that I was doing before the pandemic. So I'm kind of okay. He's a guy who works 9 months out of the year and knows his TV show's coming back. So he's got 3 months of vacation and then he's back to work. And if he doesn't have work, he doesn't have a hobby except going and sitting in a movie theater and seeing a blockbuster like Tenet or Dune. I might have to actually go into a theater for Dune. So these are real issues, do you guys have any other advice on kind of how to help people survive this kind of pandemic mindset? Keeping a good attitude is really kind of hard. Gratitude seems to be a great way. Gratitude and grace seem to be two things that can really keep your mind on track. But do you guys have any advice on that? And maybe not, and maybe I just vomited it all onto the Zoom recording for us, but.
No,
Go ahead. I was just going to say that, I'm sorry.
Susan, you first, then Jessica.
Okay. I have been watching your Facebook page, Linda, and I can't wait to be invited to your house because the stuff you cook looks amazing. So, I'm intimidated and haven't learned to cook to that degree. But I think it is that, like finding a hobby, finding all those things that you say, if I had the time, I'd do this. Now, I've done like 2 of them out of the list of 100, and just try to remain positive. I know initially SAG-AFTRA was great and they said these are some tips to get you through this. Do not put on the news channels and just let it run all day. So, I put on HGTV and let that run while I'm working, and my husband wound up with a list of honeydew projects. But so he's
Very
not
clever.
bored at all. But try to connect with people, what if it's meditating, praying, whatever, keep your spirit like up, keep your energy out in the world and not just keep winding it up tighter and tighter inside you. That's, I just feel like it can be very isolating. You can start to feel like a hermit, a shut-in, but whether it's through Zoom or just calling, texting. I take walks through my neighborhood. I've got some great neighbors, I wave to them from their driveways. Just connect with people however you can. But I will say getting back to work has been the best thing ever. Like, I'm so proud of our state. I'm so proud of our community for just really giving it all they had, welcoming people back in, to the state, and, just getting the work back out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? How about closing thoughts? If we haven't already closed out thoughts, anybody got anything else to say that I may not have thought of or covered?
I think to add on to what Susan was saying, and I agree with every single bit of it, I think everybody's house and yard is going to look more amazing than ever. But I think also for everybody, keep in mind that everything is temporary. This is not the way it's going to be. Things may adapt and change, but this is not the way life is going to be forever and ever. It's all temporary. And to realize we just need to get through whatever this period is and to enter a new period. And then just continue to reach out. We have a lot of times we do Zoom calls or Zoom dinners with family and friends. Our son that's in the DC area will say, hey, we're going to have a Zoom dinner. So we'll set the computer at the end of the table and we'll have dinner together. I just stay connected as much as you can.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. This has been great. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Screen Actors Guild AFTRA. Thank you, crew members out there and cast members and vendors. All our vendors and everybody who is working overtime to make this work. I think Georgia has the possibility to come out of this ahead of a lot of people. I think this can be a great opportunity for local actors to get more opportunities. So I think it's really important, like Mike said, there are some online classes going on out there, but keeping the chops up, even if it's playing charades on Friday nights, a game night, maybe you're acting out scenes, I mean, table reads are great, but why not act out scenes with the family, I mean, unless, it's some sort, I mean, there's all kinds of fun ways that, you might be able to keep those chops up. But thank you guys. Thank you all audience for tuning in to the 10th anniversary of the Atlanta Film Festival Creative Conference. Like I said, there are 4 more COVID panels. We've got one with actors. We've got one with crew and COVID safety officers. This is auditions, and we have one for testing and post-production, how remote post-production is working, because that is really complicated, but has worked out really well as well. There's all kinds of great content during the rest of the festival. I hope you buy a pass or an individual ticket, and I will virtually see you at the festival this year. And thank you guys again.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Good to see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you all. Be safe.